What do you miss the most from the 90s/2000s? Story 1. There was a general sense of optimism in society at large. We all genuinely believed we would graduate from school and work hard and be rewarded with a fulfilling life, free from financial worries. IDK, maybe it was youthful ignorance, but it really did feel like the world was our oyster. Now, everyone is just so angry. Story 2. I also remember liking the fashion of that era. I had this pretty purple top with long bell sleeves, made me feel like Ella Enchanted. And I had purple suede boots, which I wore everywhere. I remember roll-on glitter perfume, glitter tattoos, limited-to sequins, tops, and crochet ponchos. Clothing that was just very colorful and very girly, made me feel like a total girl. Story 3 from the 90s, U.S. perspective, the feeling of hope and moving into a new collaborative global world. It wasn't all unicorns and rainbows, but it felt like we were getting closer to a global kumbaya situation. I really missed the optimism and togetherness. We were progressing as a global society. 2000s was the reality check decade, and 2010s just built on that fear and division. I think that's why Obama had a great initial campaign. He was running on that 90s sentiment. Story 4 group phone calls after school. Be by your phone at 4:30. Someone would have to hang up for someone needing the internet and have to hang up, dropping the caller they added. We'd have to do roll call LOL. Also, AIM, Game Boy, passing notes, or notebooks. Lisa Frank was everywhere. Nickelodeon, cheesy but memorable Disney movies, etc. 90s kids were the last generation to grow up during the transition into the internet. Our patience was stronger then. For how long we waited for one image to load after asking Jeeves. Story 5. The simplicity. There really wasn't any smartphones. Internet was still fairly new. You had to be sociable. We would actually hang out with friends, go camping, ride bikes, sleepovers, whatever your little heart desired. Now it's nothing but looking for validation from people who will never know you or even care about you by farming for likes and shares. Social media has ruined humanity, and I will die on that hill. Story 6. I was a young kid in the 2000s, so I guess watching more innocent, slow-paced kids, movies, and shows, like Barbie as a princess dancing ballet to classical music, or shows like Between the Lions or Mr. Rogers. Lots of children's media today is so incredibly chaotic and fast-paced. If I were a kid today, it'd make me anxious, LOL. Story 7. Lack of options for entertainment. I never imagined I would say something like that, but I feel we were more connected back then. We were mostly all watching the same things, conversing on the same subjects, and we got bored, so we visited friends and family just to hang out. Story 8. Feeling relatively safe. Yeah, shit went down. But riding my bike literal miles away from my home at age 9 and coming home when the streetlights came on. No influencers, no social media, no constant communication via cell phones, feeling unreachable, easily getting lost in the wilderness on trails, in a good way that is not running into a bunch of people, conversations with strangers, and really life being affordable. Story 9. A lot of things. People minding their own business, not being so self-obsessed. Basically, I guess I miss the pre-social media era. I genuinely think it's a curse upon mankind at this point. It's devastating our communities, and we allow it to do so. People don't know their neighbors anymore. There's no more stuff like a 4th of July block party or a bake sale, potluck fundraiser, etc. People don't randomly stop by to say hello and catch up. Families don't eat together at the kitchen table and talk about their day. Kids want to grow up to be social media influencers or a YouTube streamer, rather than be of service to the public or learn a skilled trade. People don't care about one another like they used to. Now it seems they all just avoid one another and they'll ignore each other in passing at the grocery store, just to go home later and throw shade via Facebook. I'm not a religious person at all. I could probably be described as agnostic at best, but mostly I'm just a heavy skeptic. But lately, I've found myself considering finding a church. The older I get, the more I start to see that maybe church has some things to offer after all. Good things. And I don't necessarily have to drink the Kool-Aid to get its benefits. Community is an important aspect of living a happy life, and it seems to be mostly ignored in today's day and age. The community is online now, but online is not the real world. And we need physical contact and face-to-face interaction. Humans are social creatures by nature. Anyways, just some food for thought. Oh, and Pogs, I miss Pogs, those were dope. Story 10. How everything wasn't woke, how we could laugh at our differences. Everyone just wanted to have fun and not stare at a little screen all day. New music genres were being invented, not just rehashed and regurgitated. Movies were original and not spin-offs and sequels. We all had better attitudes. and didn't give a crap about a friend's political ideologies. Things moved at a more reasonable pace, and deadline expectations were more realistic. God, I miss those decades. Story 11. Electronic gadgets. There used to be video cameras, digital still cameras, portable cassette players and CD players, music on physical media, neat portable radios, calculators of all kinds with all sorts of functions, portable MP3 players, CD-ROM writers, zip drives, mice with 2 scroll wheels, Microsoft trackball explorers. Man, now it's all in a phone. Mall stores really don't have jack for gadgety things anymore. I used to love shopping around for neat electronic gadgets. They don't exist anymore. I'm only griping about this because I recently had to kill a few hours and tried to kill them in a shopping mall. There were 3 AE stores, 3 Lids, 3 Oakley, and 3 Sunglass Huts in the same mall. While I miss the late 90s and its quirky shit, I'll not trade my phone in for it. I just want to shop for the junk. Story 12. For Christmas, '96, I got a Nintendo 64. In 2002, I got a GameCube. I miss the simplicity of gaming. You put a cartridge disc in, load up the machine and play. Didn't need an account anywhere. Didn't need to download the game first. No internet gaming. If you wanted multiplayer, you all had to be in the same room, etc. Just good fun. Gaming has become a serious business these days, and a lot of games just don't feel fun anymore. Story 13. Going to concerts or just listening to live music at a small venue, club, or bar. I did mostly small venue gigs after 2000, but they were more enjoyable than the arena-sized ones. Different genre of music too, as my music tastes matured. Very casual and intimate settings, cover charge of 2 beers to get in, and just a few feet away from stage. Story 14. Likely been said or in a way tied into what others have said, but I miss the early internet before it became all corporatized and essentially turned into a handful of aggregate sites, social. I miss the creativity people showed just to share it, rather than try to find a way to capitalize on it. I'm not saying quality content doesn't exist anymore, nor that there aren't a lot of talented people making things now on various platforms. Many of the people doing it wouldn't even know where to begin, but it's very easy now to make content to be shared with the world, so it opens it up to near anyone. That's great in its own way, but maybe I miss the nicheness of the internet, and even computers in general. Story 15. Apathy. You might think that apathy is well and alive, but what we are experiencing isn't apathy. It's manufactured and reinforced existential dread build to beat people down by saying they must be overloaded by worry. What existed in the 90s was a society that, while it had worries and dread, wasn't fueled by it. People just didn't care as much about what anyone in particular was doing as long as the thing that would be a bother didn't intersect with their life. You still had bigotry, but it was more that everyone was content not thinking about whatever it is that could be an issue with them. They were apathetic to you being anything other than a person, so long as you didn't force yourself into their bubble. And even then, they would tolerate you for as long as they were required to, because while apathetic, most people with an issue understood that times had changed, and people didn't want bigots around them. Again, it wasn't across the board or a perfect existence, but people were ending up more tolerant, even if it was only surface deep. I miss it. I miss people not caring who I was or who I wanted to date. Obviously, some people did, but they no longer went out of their way to either be mad about it or talk about how great it was, and how it is a big deal. People were just apathetic about it, and most other things, and the only people who were a bother were both the religious right and, oddly, the yuppie liberals, who both seemed focused on being uppity weirdos. Mostly like how it is today, but with social media, everyone's being weirdos, and it's annoying. Story 16. From 90, Father. Cartoon Network, childhood and brilliant brain function that had as a child, and high school from 00, or almost everything. I would like go back, stuck, and never come in present time realm. I don't like change. I think we lived better at end of last century, and I'm almost certain that things gonna go only worst for me and for majority of humans. And also I was extremely optimistic back then. Story 17. In those years, driving even a few hours away meant total escape from troubles that today are everywhere all at once thanks to social media and the interconnected nature of the world. I also miss that in retrospect, those were golden years in so many respects. Music, animation, video games, etc. And I know it isn't simply nostalgia because I feel that kids growing up today will not look back fondly at these recent years. I also like that because the world was more isolated into unique little pockets of cultural isolationism, everything had more individual character. Perhaps most importantly, I didn't know then how incredibly stupid the average person is. Today, there are daily reminders thanks to the internet and social media, and I think it's unhealthy to be bombarded every day by stupidity. I think that's why people are less optimistic about the state of our society. Story 18. Video rental stores, in-person shopping being better, seeing new movies in theaters. Which, on that note, new good movies that weren't all redos or lame pumped-out action rom-coms. The kind of naivety innocence because we weren't as connected to everyone and everything. Things like public pools and roller rinks and community stuff being entertainment for families and kids. People seem much more isolated from the communities they live in now. Color. Why is everything so sad and grayish now? Even McDonald's has gone blah modern in its aesthetic. Story 19. Pokemon, Furbies, Beanie Babies, Tickle Me Elmo, and Sony PlayStation ruled supreme with Microsoft's Xbox gaining ground. Dude, we got a Dell! The hard drive was so large and loud when booted up the fans would kick on and it sounded like a Boeing 747 taking off. We had dial-up and didn't even realize that it was slow. Cell phones in the infancy stage. The only game worth a crap was Nokia's Game Snake. I had 2 sons, born 93 and 96. Remember Barney? He loved you, and we loved him. Blue's Clues, the Wild Thornberrys, the Rugrats, the Power Rangers, the Oddity of the Teletubbies, and the Wiggles. It was a great time to raise 2 little sons. Story 20. In the 90s, I remember most teenagers didn't have mobile phones, and if they did, they were actual analog phones that could send texts or call, and that's it. Maybe a game of Snake if you got a Nokia. I held out longer than most, thinking it was weird to let people call you anytime they wanted. It's better to just go home and check your messages. Still think I was right about that. Story 21. Simplicity. Ignorance can be bliss. Our standards nowadays are too high, often unreasonably. We were happy with 8-bit video games with 3 buttons. Now anything short of virtual reality and your monitor giving you a back rub is a negative reviews. We would try harder to make things work with relationships. Nowadays, everybody is looking for the next best thing. Just hop back on a dating app and re-roll. We were happier with friends. Now we're all too connected to our screens and social media, broke or busy to find and maintain deeper connections, etc. Story 22. Snow. I hate driving in it now, but as a kid, I absolutely loved it, and we would get so much more and it stuck around longer. One of my favorite memories is waking up just a couple days before Christmas at my grandparents' house and seeing a good 4 inches of snow covering everything. Now all we get here, I now live maybe 5 minutes away from where that used to live, is a dusting and single-digit temperatures. Temperatures that alternate between snot freezing in your nose in half a second and just warm enough to make the roads slick. Then it freezes again, making it extra dangerous to drive. Story 23. Our non-reliance on social media or technology for entertainment and connection, I'm not gonna lie. I personally love most of it. I grew up as it grew up, but I can also see the downsides, pros and cons of a time where it didn't work the way it does now. It's just different, and I miss it. But it doesn't mean that it was always better. I also miss how genuine things seemed. People really believed what they said, thought, acted, and looked like. I'm not saying there aren't people like that today. It's just harder to discern. Story 24. Small thing, but I miss getting the newspaper from the machine outside the coffee shop. I would go to work with Father, and he'd give me the sports page. I would read alongside him while we drank coffee. We still work in the same business, and I see him every day, but I miss that ritual with him. Story 25. The feeling of wonder and how everything seemed so open, possible, and exciting. I can't even explain it really, but it's not like that anymore. I also loved the themes and aesthetics, video stores, video games from those times, companies, color schemes, logos, and things were more authentic, in my opinion. Places would have policies where you could show them your report card and get a deal or even get something for free. Now it just feels like everything is so commercialized and sterile. Story 26. Honestly, what I miss most is probably the lack of social media. It was a time when stupidity and ignorance didn't have a global platform to take precedence over the genuinely important topics. Stupid opinions weren't publicized, lies weren't mistaken for the truth and shared, and the majority of people weren't ridiculously materialistic and dependent on image. Facebook and Instagram taught us that the shallowest aspects of our lives should be valued the most. Society functions on the surface now. No one cares about the person standing next to them. That and the sound of dial-up. Story 27. I miss the simplicity and being excited by the small things. I miss begging my parents to let me stay up to watch a new episode of a show and then discussing it with my friends at school the next morning. I miss actually going to see movies in theater, because there was no telling how long it would take to go on DVD. The music was absolutely top tier. I miss having so much life ahead of me. I miss how special it was to visit my grandparents 8 hours away. I miss my grandfather now. I miss the holiday vibes also. The present is great too, though. In 10, 20 years, I'll be nostalgic about the 2020s too. Story 28. Internet in 00s before Facebook were amazing. Much better experience compared to today. Sure, everything was in low resolution, slow, and lacked convenient streaming services. But the lack of social media sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok, etc. made up for it tenfold. People didn't rely on the internet, and it became a hub for hobbies and casual discussions. Story 29. Spending hours outside, wandering the neighborhood, cartoon VHS tapes, sneaking into the living room to watch Adult Swim when everyone else was asleep, going for walks with my friends, or going to the mall, or going to Hollywood Video and a pizza place afterwards so we could spend all night watching and eating and talking, riding our bikes to different parks until it grew dark, reinventing board game rules, watching football with my dad and brother during Thanksgiving, and my creativity, not feeling judged for it or worried that it was unoriginal or getting bogged down by so many other worries and insecurities that I'd lose all motivation. Story 30. People figured things out on their own or with a little help from their friends, instead of spending many hours watching tutorials and getting things handed to them. It was a bonding experience, and you didn't feel bad as a beginner since you weren't expected to know everything already, be it guitar or makeup or how to style clothes. I feel like everyone is just mediocrely good at things now. There was also a lot more independence in having to look for things/people/how to do things. I find that I don't really remember things that well, since my brain knows it can Google it at any time. Story 31. My old street home, we had about 12 kids in the street, and this was only the early 2000s, but none of us had phones. We would literally go door to door and scream out to come play outside, and we would play footy on the road, tips, hide and go seek, 44 home. Man, those were the days I'll forever cherish. All in the moment without being glued to social media. I don't ever see streets like this where 12 kids are outside playing together.